The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Budd, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank the chairwoman and thank the witnesses. The federal government's spending, and I'm not even talking about debt, but just the spending here, it's expected to reach record highs this year, 2021, and Democrats are trying to dump trillions of what I believe is very reckless spending into an already inflationary economy. So as a percentage of GDP, our public debt has reached 125% in the second quarter. Secretary Yellen, very briefly, do you believe that there is a level of debt that is unsustainable in our economy? And if so, what is that number? And you can share that with me either in dollars or as a percentage of GDP.
Well, I believe that the debt held by the public relative to GDP is around 105%. And that's a number that is higher than we've had during most of the post-war period in the United States, but it is not a number that I think is fiscally irresponsible or unsustainable. Interest
Madam
rates,
Secretary, do you have a number that is the threshold that is irresponsible, either in percentage or in dollars?
well, one way that I would judge that is by looking at the interest burden, the real interest burden on the debt. That really is the burden, a better measure of the burden it places on our economy. And this year, that interest burden has actually been negative. Interest rates have been exceptionally low. This dates back to before the financial crisis in 2008, and most economists believe that there are deep structural reasons why low interest rates are likely to continue, even if nominal interest rates move back toward more normal levels. That interest burden.
Just because I want to be aware of the time constraints, thank you, Ms. Secretary. If the interest rate was zero, what is irresponsible in percentage or dollars?
Well, I think that if the real interest burden stays below
if it's as
historical
is,
norms. I'm sorry, if interest rates are zero?
If it's, let's say zero, let's say as is, pick one of those, and let's say what is irresponsible as a percentage or total dollars of debt.
Well, if interest rates are zero and negative in real terms, certainly we could have a substantially higher burden, although there are always risks pertaining to the path of interest rates that need to be taken account of.
I understand. Thank you. Let me shift gears a bit. In one of my recent telephone town halls, I asked a poll question to those who were able to join me. It said, have you or your family noticed a sharp rise in prices for food, gas, or electricity? And 94% of the respondents, and it was a good sample size, they said yes. Inflation is eating away at the buying power of every single North Carolinian. And bottom line, inflation is a tax on working Americans. So Chairman Powell, I know that you've called the inflation that we're dealing with transitory, and boy, I sure hope you're right. But what would you tell people back in my district, especially those on fixed incomes, when they are struggling to make ends meet right now? What would you tell them?
I would say that we are dealing with a very unusual event that's really part of the broader COVID event, that the economy is now reopening, that we're hitting supply-side bottlenecks. For example, it's hard to manufacture cars without semiconductors, which are in short supply, so car prices are going up, and lots of prices are being affected by supply-side constrictions. We expect that those will abate, that they'll lessen, and over time inflation will come back down. Exactly when that will happen is not possible to say, but I would say we should be seeing some relief in coming months and over the course of the first half of next year.
I hope you're right. The folks I talked to back in North Carolina are doubtful of that, but I do hope you're right. Chairman Powell, next question. So in a July hearing before this committee, you were asked about CBDC, or the central bank digital currencies, and their impact on stablecoin and other cryptocurrencies. And you stated, and I think I quote you correctly here, you wouldn't need stablecoins, you wouldn't need cryptocurrencies if you had a digital U.S. currency. So, Mr. Chairman, as a matter of policy, is it your intention to ban or limit the use of cryptocurrencies like we're seeing in China?
No, and I immediately realized I had misspoken there. I didn't mean take the word cryptocurrency out of that sentence, and I would say it's fairly widely understood that central bank digital currencies could perform could make.
But no intention to ban.
Less.
No intention to ban.
No intention to ban them, but they're, the stable coins are like money market funds, they're like bank deposits, but they're to some extent outside the regulatory perimeter, and it's appropriate that they be regulated. Same activity, same regulation.
Thank you. I yield back.